Around 60 nightlife outlets have so far shown interest to reopen under a trial which will only allow 25 spots to do so next month. Well, the pilot allows businesses like bars and nightclubs to open for a period under strict conditions like needing customers to test negative for COVID-19 a day before. Now, those wanting to pivot to a new line of business like F&B or exit the industry can get grants to do so. The Singapore Nightlife Business Association says it will ramp up its outreach to firms in the coming days. Well, Gwyneth Teo joins us now from Zouk Club with more. So, Gwyneth, tell us more about the interest for this pilot trial. Sounds like there's quite strong demand for it.
So last Friday, that's when agencies actually put out those measures that you were talking about, these first feelers of what this pilot trial could look like. And since last Friday and until 6 p.m. today, the Singapore Nightlife Business Association has received about 150 queries. And of those, about 40% of those were interested in the pilot. Now, that's 60 queries interested in the pilot for only 25 slots, as you pointed out. So there's quite strong interest. But there's a couple of things to remember about this interest that we're seeing. First of all these operators, if not most of them, have actually not been operating since March. So for half this year, they've been bleeding money. Even as the rest of the economy has opened up again, they have been forced to stay shut. And the other thing is that they also haven't heard a lot of the details of what they will have to do under this pilot, because this pilot really is the roadmap for the nightlife industry to open up again. These are all the measures that may be in place if the rest of the industry is to be open. So they are quite onerous. As you mentioned, there's testing a day before. They have to make sure that people do not sing in common areas. They can only let in 2 zones of 50 people on the dance floor. And the dance floor itself, you would have to party in your group 2 meters away from the next group. So it's quite a lot of things that people will have to ensure. And it will definitely change the way that we view nightlife as we've always known it. And that's why the association, they're saying that this might not be for everyone, because even after the 3-month trial period, there's actually no guarantee as well that the government will allow these pilot operators to continue operating.
Now, the pilot program which came out, which everybody thinks is an option, it's really a very difficult one. There are a lot more stringent measures, higher costs with the antigen testing, and the weight of the industry is actually on the businesses that are accepted into the pilot to make it work and to make sure our cases and numbers do not spike or do not rise, so that the other businesses can open in a good manner when the pilot is over.
Gwyneth, it sounds like this pilot may not be for everyone. So what happens to the rest?
So for the other 60% of the queries that came in, we had half of them looking to pivot. That's about 45 queries. The other half looking to exit. Now, if you want to pivot out, you can your license will be temporarily converted to an F&B one, if that's what you choose, for a period of 12 months. So what this really is a lifeline to nightlife businesses to let them run a different kind of business, earn some revenue, and so that in a year's time we can all reassess whether the nightlife industry is actually viable. And if you want to exit, you can actually tap on grants in order to fund defray a little bit of the liquidation costs as well as pay last salaries. But these are the options that are open. And in fact, I'm standing in a nightclub, Zouk, which actually successfully pivoted. It's got a few spaces. The one behind me was just used for exercise classes for most of this evening. It's got another space that's now used for live streaming as a live streaming studio. And it's also got another space that's a pop-up restaurant. So it is possible to pivot. And that's what the association is also asking people to consider. But they also say you have to make a very careful decision, because if you choose to pivot, you won't have access to exit grants. And if you choose to exit, you won't be able to reapply for a license in the same industry for a year. So the deadline for the pilot is this month. They're trying to extend that deadline, but most likely it will be this month. And the deadline for application for exit grant and for the conversion grant will be on 31st March next year. So it's going to be a time of reckoning, not just this month, but for the next few months, as firms and operators in this industry decide whether to stay or to take their fortunes elsewhere.